new nerd segment for you. You guys ever wonder what the hell is Stuff Plus? My friend and colleague, Sarah's recently wrote an article on The Athletic. Go check it out if you have a subscription. If you don't already have a subscription, by the way, The Athletic is one of the better sports subscriptions out there. I'm a big fan of it. I also work for them, so put a little bias there. But I love the way that how quickly stuff is put out, and it's got some of the sources that I know personally and that I value personally. Ken Rosenthal, Sarah's Mr. Nerd, my friend on the Rates and Barrels podcast. He wrote an article because he is one of the purveyors of Stuff Plus and is actively working on updating it regularly. Now, what is Stuff Plus? Okay. This article does a great job of explaining it. But in short, basically it's a stat that evaluates pitching by removing game context and focusing on physical traits of the pitch. AKA, when you hear me say things like, in a vacuum, this pitch is good. In a vacuum, removing who's hitting, what the situation of the game is, what stadium you're in, what time of day it is, what time of year it is, all that kind of stuff, how healthy everybody is. Remove all that stuff. Is this a good pitch? And then you can then make decisions after that. But you want to establish how good of a pitch is beforehand. And a lot of times it's for development. So people will be like, hey, this guy's Stuff Plus on his slider is really good, but he only throws it 10% of the time. Maybe if we trade for him, then we can tell him to throw it 50% of the time, and then he'll be good again. We're the Tampa Bay Rays. It's that kind of thing. All right? Anyone who don't know, when statistics have a plus, it means that it's normalized at a number. So like 100 means league average. That is the league average, and then above 100 is better than, below 100 is worse than. I did a version of this for my own self, but 0 was average because I thought that made more sense. So, all right, here's a bunch of nerd stuff. Put it on. You notice the bottom is extension. The top is velocity. Velocity is very, very important. Here's the biggest stuff, okay? And I wrote you guys a little bit of a synopsis here, and I'll give you a little more of a breakdown. Higher velocity benefits both fastballs and secondary pitches. So because velocity is important for both, it's the highest ranked here. That makes a lot of sense. It also serves as an anchor for creating relative effectiveness to other pitches, meaning the harder you throw, the bigger the difference is between your other pitches. So your fastball being really hard and good will also make your other pitches good by how they interact with your fastball. Your fastball is what we call your default pitch. It's the pitch you throw the most people throw most, or it's the pitch you'll throw first and then work off of. Like that still exists. Even if a guy throws 70% breaking balls, they still use their fastball as a default pitch. It needs to work off of it. It's for most pitchers. Some pitchers only throw one pitch. Matt Whistler only throws one pitch, right? But most throw a fastball and then everything else works off of it. And this model seeks to account for that, which I love. They've also added like a bunch of release point stuff in here, which is new. So it's been updated. That's what this article is about how it's been updated, but also understanding that teams now, like almost all the teams, are using some variation of Stuff Plus now when they evaluate their pitchers. It's a good way to put everything into a number. And that is a good place as a starting point. People want to get simplified numbers so they can go, is this guy probably pretty good at this? Cool. All right, now let's dig in deeper and see how we can either make him better or we can get him to use that good thing more often to get better outcomes. It's like, how good would he be in a vacuum so that then when we add context, there's more context in which he'll be successful. That is the point of Stuff Plus. I know this is a lot, so bear with me. All right, here's an example of why velocity is important. You either have a ton of movement and it gets more red as you get faster, or you have less movement and it gets red as it goes faster. So velocity plus movement is all the red, and then all the other stuff is the averages. So you want to stay out of the blue and you want to go into the red. These are like the elite pitches. Elite pitches, they do one of the two things really well or both. I know it's so nerdy, but it makes sense once it's explained. All right. Now, new thing added are spin. Spin's important too, but also release point. So release point and spin are important for this model because they're starting to be able to quantify when when releasing point produces a spin that makes a hitter think something's happening when it doesn't actually, when it's not going to happen. We're able to quantify deception now, which is fascinating to me. This is something that this is seam shifted wake in a nutshell. This is why seam shifted wake is good. If you release a pitch and it looks like it's spinning like a cutter, but it goes that way, it goes right instead of left. It doesn't break, it backs up, but it does that every time. A hitter naturally is like, oh, that's going to break, and then it doesn't, and they can't hit it because it's not behaving in the way it's supposed to behave because of a new thing called seam shifted wake. So now release point is what can give you an idea if something has seam shifted wake or not. It's one of the factors of that. So if a guy's got a weird release point and the ball spins in a weird way, but then moves in a normal way, that could be enough distraction to make it a hard hitting pitch. So in a vacuum, it's a great pitch. But then it's how good's your command and how often you can throw for strikes and all kinds of stuff. It's why batters always swing under a hitter's fastball. Exactly. They think it's going to sink and it doesn't. It doesn't run, it doesn't sink, it doesn't anything. It goes straight and stays up. And this is why guys are always hitting the sinker into the ground because they're like pulling their hands in to hit it down and in, but it's going down and away. So they're capping it all the time or they're missing it. This is actually why Clay Holmes gets more swings and misses than most sinker guys because it's so different than what they see. So Stuff Plus factors all of this in. And the new version of the model is starting to add this stuff into it, which I'm really excited about. This is conversations Eno and I has had like a lot. So how is Stuff Plus now used? Right? This is the last part of this little segment. I know, it's nerdy. But how is this thing used? The interesting part about this is now you're able to find whether or not a pitch might work well, and you can find pitches that guys might be able to throw. So basically, here's how decisions are being made this way. Guys, a supinator, you're like, all right, cool. If you supinate your changeup or you supinate your fastball, you might be able to seam shift to get something to go that way. Because people who supinate a lot of times have trouble getting anything to go right. If you're right-handed, the arm side, you want it to go the same direction as your arm. It's hard to get anything to go effectively that way. So you got to find some way to do it using seam shifted wake as opposed to pronation this way, which is how we've done it historically. So you can find like these inefficiencies based on your score. And do I need to make an adjustment? The Stuff Plus and this sucks. So it's not going to react good. It doesn't have that deception. It doesn't have that movement profile. It's basically, it looks a lot like what a hitter's thinking is going to be. So even though I've never thrown it to a hitter, I can feel good about my ability to throw it into a barrel. And the opposite happens when the Stuff Plus is higher. So that is one part. It's about pitch design and determining whether or not a pitch is good on the outset. Like, this could be good. This could give me some metrics that will give me a good Stuff Plus, which then might be solid in a game if I'm able to do that. And then you're able to keep up with the trends in the game. For example, splitters are big right now. Everyone throwing splitters. This is how people are learning splitters. They're using Stuff Plus. Now Stuff Plus can tell you if a splitter's good or not early. And now teams are using it that way. It's not this is good and that's all. It's just like, this might be good. Let's see what we can do now contextually. Let's add context and see if it's still good. But you want somewhere to start. You don't want to start from, oh, it's average. Let's try to add context and make it good now. Like that never happens. So that means you got to work on the pitch first before you can add context to it, which I love. It's removing a step. We don't have to sit here and suck for a while, and before we figure it out, we can do that. We can figure out whether or not it's going to suck and feel good about that before we go and use it, which players are doing, and that's why guys are finding pitches so quickly. That's why this is happening. It's because there's so many different places that do this. Driveline does it. Tread does it. Every team has some version of this. So this is a great quote from the article that explains everything I just said. What seems likely that hitters see a release point and then automatically expect a certain type of movement from that slot. Pitchers who can play with that expectation, like Josh Hader does, do really well in Stuff models. So, because Stuff Plus came around and this is the way that it was being evaluated, that's why you saw sweepers come in. That's why you saw the hard, like, death ball sliders, and that's why you've seen splitters come back. It's because Stuff Plus loves them, because Stuff Plus tells you a pitch that's funky. Now, if everyone throws funky ones, now you change the hitter's eyes. So now they see that seam shifted wake, and the more seam shifted wake you see, the more often you're going to assume it's seam shifted wake and you're going to adjust accordingly. And then you have to go. So what's going to happen is we're going to go back to the old stuff, and the bullet slider is going to be good, and the big curveball is going to be good. The spin that is what traditionally is happening when it moves that way will become popular again because everyone has been seam shifting and has changed what normal is. And that's what's going to happen in baseball. That's how you can predict what's going to happen. So it's just like any other statistic, guys. It's not an end all, but Stuff Plus is really interesting. Now, if you were interested in these pitches and you playing fantasy baseball and you want to go find your guy or you want to do bets or whatever, we have you can go check out a leaderboard. I don't know how the leaderboard didn't get put in here, but leaderboard on Fangraph.com. They have one searchable. You can edit it. You can filter it. It's great. So go check it out. It's really good. It's just a combination of all the stuff that we care about pitchers put together into a stat and can point. I think of it as a compass. It points you in the right direction to learn about this stuff. So this is the nerd shit I crave. Well, you came to the right place because I'm a nerd. Okay, so let me just read the rest of my conclusion here. I know I have a little script here, but I want to read it to you. If you have a guy with 6 pitches, Stuff Plus is extremely valuable in some situations, not so much in others. If you have a guy with 6 pitches and they're all rated like 95 to 105, he may have average stuff, but makes up for it in command, right? You can have a guy out there that is effective with a bunch of, he creates so many different contexts with his pitches that makes up for Stuff Plus, but it's hard to do. Stuff Plus is extremely valuable, though, when looking for a player that may have potentially devastating pitch, like the Rays do constantly, or telling guys they should throw something more, they should throw something less, or they should just get rid of it, right? You throw a pitch, and you're throwing 30% of the time, and it's got a 70 freaking Stuff Plus, and be like, dude, stop throwing that pitch. It sucks ass, and that's why you keep getting hurt on it, and we can tell you definitively why it sucks ass. Yusei Kikuchi goes to the Astros, throws only slider fastball, and is punching 13 a game. That's what happened. The Astros saw something. Your Stuff Plus and these 2 pitches are better. Do that, please. Thank you. Anyways, sorry. And that's what the F is Stuff Plus. You're welcome.